I'd like to open the meeting today saying that I've done some research on the dog park, and without a donation of land, I've looked in two major cities that had them. They did not have a park like us, and did not have shoreline to walk the dogs. And without that huge contribution with the land, it's very expensive. So I'm taking it off the agenda for next week,
And out of consideration of this budget.
and consideration of this budget. Any discussion?
No, but the idea was you were going to look into it, not that you were going to, that we are going to do it. So this is fine.
Okay.
We looked in, we said no.
Very expensive. So are we going to the general fund, Hiram?
I'm just going to let Tara give a brief spiel about where we're at, current state in the budget, and then we can proceed however you'd like.
Okay.
Okay. So I kind of, revenues are going to be a big issue with this budget. And we did have the revaluation this year. In your packets, if you look under revenues, you'll see that I did the three different tax rates. The 14 cents is what will be revenue neutral for the reappraised value, and that's for the ad valorem taxes. It doesn't include any of the other revenues that we have. That's just for the property tax current year. If we go with the 14 cents with the current budget expenditures that we have in here, we would have to cut $433,000 out of this budget. Or you would have to appropriate fund balance, which is something that I strongly suggest we don't do, because in the current year, it's looking like we're going to appropriate about $600,000. And that is just a really rough guess, because expenditures can come in a little bit less, revenues could come higher than what I projected. I mean, it's definitely just estimates. But my best guess is that of that appropriated fund balance that we have, $600,000 will be taken, like we will keep $600,000 as appropriated, which will reduce our fund balance that we currently have now by $600,000, which will drop our percentage that we have. Currently, we're at 101% fund balance, which is good for a beach town because of where we are and the threats that we have as far as hurricanes and things like that. And it's also for specific projects that you want to do moving forward. It is good to have a strong fund balance. This is probably, I have to look into it further, but I think that it'll bring us down to around 80%. It depends on where our expenditures are for the next year. That's how it's figured. It's like fund balance versus what your expenses are for the next fiscal year. So that's pretty much where we stand. If we go revenue neutral at 14 cents, we're $433,000 off.
What is the current fund balance, and what would it be if we removed this 600,000?
It's like 5.9 million, roughly. I don't have the exact number with me, so it'd be dropped down to about 5.3.
Okay. Thank you.
And so any appropriations for the coming year would be based off that whatever the remainder is. So that rough 5.3 if we do the 600 this year. So any more fund balance appropriation for the coming year is only going to continue, obviously, reducing that number further.
And it's really bad practice that if you're going to use fund balance, it should be for like a capital project or things like that, not to get you by to the next year. You're setting yourself up for never catching up in the future if you appropriate for operating. It's meant for if you have a project, or towns will build their fund balance knowing that they have this project they want to do in a few years, so they know they have that money to be able to pay for that project. And they're aware that it's going to be reduced that year by some, and then you build it up again to do the next project.
And for us last year, that was the sidewalk project and the kickstarting the stormwater projects. not to maintain continually doing that every year.
I have a question.
Yeah, Charlie?
Hope the ceiling doesn't fall on me, but what if we went to pre-last year and went up a penny on the taxes? What
So-
would that bring in?
So if we stayed at 15 cents,
No.
we would be off by 273,000. It's around $160,000 revenue for the town per penny.
Roughly based on the estimate of what we're getting for this year's ad valorem.
Yeah, I sent Hiram and Tara an email asking for a consolidated list of what has been added to this budget for us to review at the next meeting. But let me tell you my overall worry. And I'm having a hard time understanding it, and I realize that Hiram has been trying to explain it to me, and it always settles out to the revenue issue. But last year, we've spent unbudgeted close to $1 million unbudgeted, because I don't think the sidewalks were budgeted.
We budgeted half of that actually was budgeted.
Yeah.
Not the full amount, because it came in higher than
It
was
came in a
anticipated.
lot higher than we
Right.
anticipated.
But 500 of that,
Right.
400 of that was budgeted,
I understand
not
that.
1 million.
But, see, what bothers me is that, and I hate to bring up old history,
Oh, boy.
but 4 years ago, we had a 52% rate hike. And in the past couple of years, we raised the fire fee by 70%. And it was not revenue neutral. So that generated another 6, 7, 800,000.
The fire fees do not have anything to do, all that has to do with, the revenue neutral is just ad valorem. It doesn't have anything to do with
The
any of the
fire
other
fee was
revenues.
not revenue neutral.
Well, what I'm saying is that revenue neutral that I'm talking about, it only has to do with property tax.
Yeah, but that's, I understand that, but we get revenues from other sources.
Right. But that's what I'm
I
saying,
mean,
the
just to,
tax rate though.
just to equate it with the property tax, and to exclude the other revenues that we receive, which impacts the tax rate, the property tax. I'm having a hard
Well, it
time.
doesn't, because
I'm having a hard time understanding why we're just cherry picking the property tax.
Well, we're just what?
Cherry picking.
Cherry picking just the property
Because
tax.
that's what you have direct control over.
Right.
We don't have control over our other revenues. These are all guesstimates supplied by other sources that we have zero control over. That's why when you maintain neutrality or raise your taxes or whatever to compensate,
Yeah,
that's where we have control over.
Well, we have projected in fiscal year 19, ending this June, I see here a revenue budget of 7.1 or 7.2 million.
Across all funds.
Yeah.
No, that's for this year.
Oh, this is year?
You're
Okay.
talking about 18, 19, the current year?
Yeah, I'm
What
talking
am I-
about 18, 19.
So
With
I
our
use,
transfers.
I
And-
use prior years and, like,
See, I don't see,
trends and things like that to do like a best guess, educated guess to know where the revenues are going to come in for those lines. Part of that is accommodations tax, what gets transferred from accommodations tax, which wasn't done last year. So that's where part of that's coming from.
well, we usually get between, I don't know, it varies. Nothing's fixed. Around $700,000, $800,000 a year from the occupancy tax.
No.
That's not correct?
No.
Gross. I'm talking gross,
Yeah.
not net.
Well, for that part of it, for the what is not restricted, is around 500, like between 5 and 6.
Right, but that's not reflected in this revenue chart.
Because for general fund, the general fund only gets what you don't use from the accommodations tax fund. So, because it's specifically for that, so those revenues go to that fund. And then because we can use that money for police and other tourism-related activities that we do through general fund, that's
Right.
why we can bring that money into fund balance. into our general fund. But that fund itself is set up separately. So that has a completely separate revenue that goes with it.
If all things remain equal, in the audit report that I referenced, indicated that the revenues were 7.2 million.
And that's all funds. So
Yeah,
that is
yeah,
general funds.
that's what I'm talking about.
Right. This is just general fund right here. Because these expenses all come out of general fund. So the audit pulls all funds. So it pulls in accommodations, it pulls in beach erosion, it pulls in sunset at sunset, it pulls in the
Dredging.
the dredging.
Any capital funds.
Yeah, see,
All
everything.
funds. So this is just general fund. This is where the meat of all of our expenses is, and
But-
doesn't have its own special revenue. Those other funds have special revenues for those specific funds.
Sarah, the question I have for you, we saved roughly $500,000 in the fire tax fee, roughly. So
The increase.
The increase. Why didn't that offset the problems we had on the budget?
So that is going to offset where you see that I have the 1.2 million and the appropriated fund balance.
Right.
That, what the fire fees come in over what was budgeted will reduce that 1.2 million. That's why I'm saying it's not going to be 1.2 million that we have to appropriate. It'll be closer to 600,000 that we have to appropriate. But the budget for the fire department, the expenditure budget for the fire department was budgeted at what the fire fees would be. So they were budgeted at 1.7 million for their expenditures, and that's what we're planning on getting in from the revenue
From a tax fee,
for the fire fees.
fire fee.
So without that difference, it would be the 1.2 million appropriated. So there is savings from those fire fees when they come in.
Right.
It's just not reflected here because the final allotment's not coming in yet, and it won't until after the first of the year, or first of the fiscal year.
Yeah,
Yeah,
So all
so,
the fire
it's
fees paid
quarterly.
before the new budget starts?
no.
no, it's quarterly allotted.
So because of the way that the audit is, we have 90 days from June 30th for those revenues to come in. Because of like the way that the state processes, you know, they get the revenues, then they pass them on to us, or Brunswick County does the same thing. I mean, and some of the reporting is quarterly, so they don't know the final number until June 30th. So then they have 90 days to get that to me. That's why the audit isn't due until October 31st. And so that I can go back. It'll be a receivable, and then I have to do journal entries to fix all of that,
So
to
technically, this
reflect
budget's
it.
going to change by October again. We just don't know how much either way.
The budget,
Yes.
No.
Revenue.
well, a little bit, yeah. Because, I mean, it is an estimate, but, you know,
See,
I go by prior years, it's usually going to be around that same amount that you bring in. Like for property tax for March, well, April is going to be around 11,000, and in the prior year it was around 10,500. So
This
it
year-
comes in really close.
This year, we went down property tax.
Yeah, because you decreased the property tax.
I know, but I understand that, but the thing is, the building went on, didn't that offset the cut of 1 penny?
It won't be evaluated until the next tax year anyway.
Okay.
So any building that has occurred this year wouldn't be paid this year. They won't get their tax bill yet.
Can you estimate what that would be with all the building going on?
No.
That's in the assessed
the
value that
county's-
they give me. So that's in my, the proposed revenue for that. It's included in that.
Okay.
Yeah.
oh, sorry, I didn't realize this was on. Banging my head. I'm still confused, and I'll tell you why. If we're only showing the revenues for the property tax,
The state, that's what the state
you know, and
requires.
just looking at this raw data, in fiscal year 17, we had a revenue, total general fund, 6.6 million. In fiscal year 20, assuming the 14 cents, is 6.4. So in other words, although we've raised the fire fee 70% in 2 years, our revenue projections for this year are $200,000 less than fiscal year 17. See, that's what I don't understand. See, that's what I don't understand. Now, the transfers have always somewhat confused me, but where's the accommodation tax for fiscal year 20? I see accommodation tax fund 164,000.
Right, so that's because of the expenditures. If you go to the expenditure section of the accommodations tax, I'm estimating that accommodations tax comes in around 500,000 because it's been around that.
Right.
And then, so you take that 500,000 and subtract whatever, the expenditures are, and then that's what the revenue would be in general fund.
But Terry, you didn't do that in the other year. I mean, they didn't do it in the other years. You show 494,000.
Then they
17.
spent less money from the expenditure line in that year.
Okay.
Where are the revenues for the fire fee?
It is, if you look under intergovernmental taxes, it's 10-32300, county fire district fees.
I don't know where that.
It's on the first page.
First page, Rich.
The one with the property taxes at the top, revenue one with, the revenue one with the property taxes at the top.
Oh, I see. What you're
Try that up there. Is that the one?
No.
Nope, nope, that's not the one. Too far away.
No, Rich, that's not. It's right here. She'll go look at mine. I've looked at it.
Okay, just make sure.
So if I add the column.
Microphone,
that says
sir.
14 cents. If I add the column that, just for example purpose, for 14 cents, and I go all the way down, it shows a revenue of 6.42, correct?
Yes.
Total general fund, yeah.
Projected for just the total general fund.
So this list, and I'll look at it when I get home again, but this list includes all of the revenues generated by the town
For the general
For
fund.
general fund.
for general funds. Where is, where's the fire fee?
On the first page,
Right here, Rich.
under intergovernmental taxes and fees at 10-32300, county fire district fees.
Yeah. In fiscal year 17, see, this is the part I don't understand. Fiscal year 17, we had 945,000. We've raised it and nearly doubled it. Now it's 1.8 million.
Wasn't the tax rate 16 cents? Yeah, the tax
It
rate was
was.
also higher in fiscal year 17. the bottom line takes in all these numbers. I mean, there's also a gasoline excise tax that was collected in 17 that's not collected anymore. The numbers fluctuate all the way down the line, so when you're comparing just that bottom dollar, that's always gonna be fluctuating up and down. If you're just worried about what the tax rate and the ad valorem does, look at the very first line and go across, and you'll see that our taxes went up, went down, went down, went down, went up. And that's fluctuating on the times that y'all have changed the tax rate over the last few years.
While Rich is looking at that, Tara, what's your recommendation? I mean, you're the tax person, I mean, you're a finance person, so could we stay at 14 cents?
I think it would be really hard to stay at 14 cents, and that you would have to appropriate fund balance if you did that.
Yeah.
And I do not suggest appropriating fund balance.
And 14 cents is not stay at, it's reducing.
It
the
is. That's revenue neutral.
In our tax rate now, 15%?
Yeah, but to maintain the same, equate the same that our revenues brought in for ad valorem, it'd be 14 cents moving forward. That would be revenue neutral.
The revenue neutral genuinely only applies to the ad
need to
valorem
switch?
current year. Like, that's when I have to report to the state, that's all they care about as far as reporting revenue neutral.
And we base it on a collection rate. That's why you're not going to see exact same numbers. Because we're basing this on a 96% collection rate, where the previous year was budgeted at over
101%.
101%
Yeah,
collection
yeah.
rate. So that's why you're not seeing the same.
So I guess maybe my question was not correct. The current tax rate on ad valorem, though, is 15 cents.
Right.
And if we stay at that rate, we're talking about a budget of a ad valorem tax of $2,394,000 in change.
Right.
Or 160,000 above the 14 cents. And if we stay at that tax rate, then we're talking about needing to cut our
200
plan here, 273,000
Right.
approximately.
Right.
And if we went up 1 cent tax raise to a 16-cent tax that we had several years back, we're then talking about needing to account for $110,000 that we would want to drop from the budget to make
Right.
it through so those are kind of the framework that we need to work through, I guess,
Right.
in today's discussion,
Yes.
Right.
to see whether we want to cut 433,000 or 273,000 or 110,000
Right.
to get us to a good budget.
Yeah, and the tax rate, that, like what Hiram mentioned before, that's why, that's the one thing that we can control, that council can decide on how it comes down. Because, like, the sales tax, that depends on people, and if they spend money or not, and it comes from the state. I mean, all of these other things depend on people. There's variable factors that you can't, as a council, you can't control those.
Disasters will happen. Florence was.
Question is,
Florence
we
is
keep
affecting
it
our bottom
at
line.
15 cents harm, does it go up to the public at all? It stays the same, right?
No,
Tax
that would be, that's what we're saying. If you change it to 14 cents, it doesn't really affect people's tax bill. If you keep it at 15 cents, it will affect because of the revow.
Okay. But technically, we're not going up in taxes because we're at 15 cents right now, correct?
No, technically, you are going up on taxes.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
right now, 15 cent, or moving forward, 15 equals 14
Because of the revow.
because of the revow.
Okay.
So you get more bang for your buck.
Well, like, that's, and like what I was saying yesterday, if you have a $300,000 home, that 1 cent, if you stayed at 15, that would affect your tax bill by $30. If you have $1 million home, it's gonna affect your tax bill for that whole year, $100. That 1 penny.
That's at 15 cents. Is that what you said?
Right, yes, yep. Every penny, that's about what
Yeah,
it would
it's
be.
about 160K, right, I mean, the revenue.
Give or take.
Again, help me out. In fiscal year 17, ad valorem was 2.3 million.
With a tax rate of 16 cents.
Yeah. In fiscal year 18, It was 2.4 million.
Again, with a 16-cent tax rate,
We dropped the tax rate last year 1 penny
right?
to 15 cents. And the income that was generated, this is just the ad valorem, was 2.3 million.
Well, budgeted, projected, but it was over-projected.
Okay, all right. No, it's, I'm trying to understand it. We projected 2.3 million for fiscal year 19. All right? Total projected fiscal year 18, 19, 2.3 million. Or two nights, I mean.
That's what we think we'll get in.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry for rounding.
That's still the estimate, right?
That's still an
Yeah.
estimate.
Oh, yeah. Revenues are always an estimate
Oh,
until.
I understand that. I understand that, but they're relatively in a narrow window. If we maintain the 15-cent proposed rate, our revenues are 2.4 million. Right? And then, when you look at the other revenues generated, they're fairly well flat.
Yeah, so a lot of those are,
No,
like-
yeah, I don't have
Let
to
let her
get down to
explain,
the
please.
weeds.
I mean, if you brought up, let her
You see,
explain. Go ahead,
That's,
please.
the other revenues, so I get projections from the league, and, like, the local option sales tax, it was projected high, and by about 40,000 roughly, and that was, because of using the state projection instead of the county projection. County projections are lower. So I think that this year will probably be about what they thought it was going to be last year. And then you're looking at trends and how things are coming in, and if things are slowing down towards this year, you know, towards the end of the year, and what they look like they're coming in, like the building permits and things like that are coming in lower, and they're progressively getting a little bit lower, so that's why that one I budgeted lower. I have always been really conservative with revenues because
No, I
you don't
respect
want to
that.
get into the,
you don't want to be surprised.
right.
I
The
don't
way
know,
the
I'm-
economy's
I'm
doing right
just-
now, you think we're gonna go from 2018 with 218,000 on permits and fees, and you're gonna drop it all the way down to $130,000?
Yeah,
That's Because we're
$100,000 drop.
but we're projecting 133 this year, and we're having a good building year.
Which line item, Mark?
Building inspection fees and all that. Why it's gone down so much. So your projection for this year is higher or lower than what you budgeted for?
well, it's been on the down, so I projected it like 3,000 lower than what I think we're gonna get this year.
Okay. What happens if we stay at 15 cents and we readjust it after we see all the fees in October? Can we do something about it then? Is it too late? We can't.
It's too late because
Yeah.
the taxes have already gone out. You can only do it once a year
Okay.
because it sets what their tax bill is going to be since we don't collect our own taxes. And then you'd have to refund people that paid early. I mean, that's why it's set up where you set the tax rate at budget time
But
and
we'll
it
also
carries
have
for
to
the
look
year
at
forward.
that time if we need money
So-
out of the fund balance, we can take it out of the fund balance at that time.
Yeah, that's why we have budget amendments, but
Yeah.
again, those are dings on the audit. And it shows that we're not managing our money properly. And that brings the LGC down to raise taxes to what they think it should be.
I'm trying to narrow the issue down, but I think what I hear you saying, if we maintain the tax rate at 15 cents, we're going to have to reduce X expenses to get there,
273,000.
273,000. What are the additions this year that can be eliminated?
Well,
I mean, that's one of the questions I asked.
Yeah, and yesterday we went through a lot of what we'd already eliminated
Yeah, I
ourselves.
understand that. No, thank God you did.
And we've taken it to bare bones, but ultimately, it's up to y'all to figure out what else can be cut. I mean, this is a project y'all want to see moving forward. These are projects the town and services the town needs. So it's at that point where we've shaved off the additional stuff that's been asked for to the point that we think is a good spot. But, you know, y'all want to increase how much you're doing on stormwater. So
Well-
that raised the stormwater department.
Yeah.
There's,
I think we have an obligation to the taxpayers to look again and attempt to reduce what additional costs that we have, and to relook at some of the other expense items, and I hate to play nickel and dime, to hopefully reduce the 270,000. That's in my head now. May
right.
not be compatible with others, but that's in my head now, because these people are taxpayers, and I know people say we have the lowest tax rate. We have a low tax rate, but our assessments are higher. Okay? So it's something that's disingenuous, because our assessments are higher.
They're not higher than the other places that have higher taxes. Just for clarification.
We get a
we're-
lot of money now from the fire fee and the accommodation tax. We get a lot of money.
I understand, but it's
I'm
a
just
little bit
saying,
misleading
I
to
think
sit there
we
and
have
say
an
our
obligation.
taxes are low because our evaluations
Yeah.
are high.
Yeah.
Our
Okay.
valuations only rose 7%.
Yeah.
I
And
am-
our valuations are also high because of the quality of the area we live in, the quality of the property that we have, that attracted
That's what I'm
us to
saying.
come down to this area.
Right.
You know, there's one other aspect. Yes, we have to be due diligent in making sure we've gone through the line item. The other, though, is determining, is this, the tax rates that we are using, are they appropriate to have a sustainable quality of life and environment here in this town that we are looking for? So one, we need to make sure that we are prudent in how we are spending the money. But the other part of it is we have to be diligent in terms of making sure that we have a tax rate that enables us to sustain the quality of our community and the services that we have. So there's a balance that
Oh,
goes
yeah.
through all of
It's-
this.
it's-
That has to be, you know, that's what we have to deal with here.
So Terry,
And so,
sorry, go ahead, John.
the conclusion I have is, are these, is 14, 15, or 16 cents sustainable for what we have in our land use plan, what we have in our vision, and the types of things we need in the community?
That's a tough question.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
well, that's
Well,
why we've
if
got
you-
these people who are experts to
And-
answer
and
these
This
tough
sounds-
questions.
We're all
This may
experts.
sound, I'm going to be really blunt, but if you do not raise taxes, you will have to cut services.
And we told you that last year.
Well, last year, we didn't know the books were cooked incorrectly.
Well, that's beside the point, is anytime you're lowering taxes, you're ultimately hurting the town. Because if we're not providing the services the town needs, then, you know, what's the point of having the town?
Wow.
So we need to be able to make sure that we are providing what we were
Sarah,
providing for people.
What would happen if we raised it to 16 cents? Would it be
Yeah,
a deficit of 110,000 roughly?
Yeah, so we would be off by 113,000 roughly.
And you've got to remember, this town has neglected services, and let's, using stormwater as that topic, for 20, 30 years. And now that you're trying to do it on the same tax rate you had before, that's impacting a lot of this.
And I mean, just by going to the community meeting that we had a few months ago, it sounded to me like the citizens that were there, they want the services. They want things to be at a certain level. And when you want that, there's always a trade-off. I mean, you have to have the money to be able to provide the services.
Yeah, no, this can get somewhat philosophical. It's determining the cost effectiveness of the services. The only thing that I am requesting is that we have an obligation to the taxpayers to go back and review the budget, to look at the additional expense items, and really determine, is it necessary or is it just nice to have? And that's the determination that we have to make. Because I do not, under any circumstances, want to raise taxes. We've hit the people with a major increase a number of years ago, and we hit the people with the 70% rate hike in the fire fee.
Well, Rich,
And-
just, Rich, so you understand, a tax rate of about $500,000 for fire fee is about $31. Or it's-
No, no,
But, you know, you say that it's so high, it's, for a $500,000 house, it's $31. So it's 70%, but it's a
no,
very
Mark,
low
no,
amount.
Mark, the point is, we doubled the income on the revenues on the fire fee. Doubled it.
Also outside our district, I mean, in our fire district. That's
We
not part
doubled
of,
it. We have $1.8 million in our wallet now. Before, we had 900. And now we're still worrying about the revenues. I think we owe it to the taxpayers to look at the additional expense items that are requested and to really ask ourselves, is it really necessary? How is it going to benefit the taxpayers? Because I don't use many of the services in this town, but they're available in case I need to. I understand that. And, you know, we've added employees, so that's the only thing that I would feel very comfortable with, is to go through the, you know, is to go through the expenses, to go through the additional items, see if they're necessary. I realize we've spent a lot of money that was unbudgeted. We have to regroup and just do another analysis, because I want to feel totally morally comfortable before we raise our tax rate again. I think we owe that to the taxpayers.
Mr. Mayor,
yes, Charlie.
we also owe an obligation to the taxpayers to provide the services that they expect. And if that means going up a penny in the tax rate, I don't see where there'd be any complaints. And I wouldn't have any ethical or moral problems with doing that. It, you know, we keep going back to how it was re-estimated last year. That's something we have to live with. And if it means going up a penny in the taxes, then so be it.
Well, I think both of you make a good point. I think we're obligated to go back and see where we can cut, if we can. And if we can't, Rich, then you have to look at the fact that we may have to raise it to 16 cents. I said, yeah, you'll be next year. You know, we're obligated to look at what we can cut. I agree. We're also obligated, if we can't cut him, because it would hurt our services in town, we have to may look at a tax increase of a penny.
Define hurt.
Well, we'll do that.
Define hurt. We have accountable hurt.
Rich, I agree with Charlie and I agree with you. So let's, as the council, look at the budget, see what we can do as far as cutting, and we have to, the council, look at the fact that if we can't cut, we have to raise a penny a tax.
That's what I suggested.
Jan?
I am opposed to raising taxes by 1 penny.
Well,
She's opposed to raising taxes.
I think the discussion of raising or lowering taxes before we've gone through and given the second examination of this budget. We did a first one yesterday, and we looked at all the cuts and changes that the staff has made. Before we go on our principle, whether I'm opposed to raising taxes or I really want to raise taxes or whatever it happens to be, we got to go through and look at all this stuff and see what we can eliminate. And after we go through, if we've eliminated 110,000 only, then we go for 16. If we eliminated 273, we can go for 15. If we eliminated 433, we can go for 14 cents.
I agree with you, John, but I do believe that we can go through and cut enough to keep our taxes where they are.
Well, that's fine if you believe that. I want to see that documented by going through and examining it first and then figuring out which tax rate we should use.
We're going to do
But that's
that.
what
The thing is,
today
guys,
is.
we can lower taxes $433,000, but what would that do to the services in this town? We have to look at that too. So, I think we're in the right direction. We all agree that we need to look at the budget, and then if we have to raise taxes, if not, maybe keep 15 cents, let's go look at it.
Then let's look at the budget and stop
Yep, okay, so we all agree on that.
flapping our lips.
All right?
Administration? No, town council's
Town
first.
council.
Oh, yeah, let's cut our budget.
Eliminate,
The only real change with the town council budget is that it's an election year, and with an election year comes an additional cost.
Okay. Any questions on the town council budget?
Yeah, I do. The specialty town merchandise, does that still include uniforms?
That's just for the
I
town
couldn't hear your
council.
question, Jan, sorry.
For the badges and specialty,
Yes.
Yeah, that's
that
what
still includes uniforms?
Well,
We
it's-
don't
it's
need
under-
uniforms.
It's under a uniform line, but it's like.
It's specifically for
your name-
badges
Your
or
name tags,
if
hats,
you needed
anything,
that.
these
The
plates.
yeah.
I know that's nickel and diamond, but still, that's what we have to do in our households when our income goes down.
Well, I don't think, listen, you're right, it's a nickel and dime, but I think you misunderstand. We don't get uniforms. The only thing they're paying for is these right here.
There were uniforms put in the budget.
Well,
No,
it's,
they're not. She just said that. It's just for
It's-
badges.
it's-
You took it out.
it's a classification line. It's not necessarily a uniform.
But is this number not the same?
Yes, we didn't take it out.
Okay,
But
that's
it's-
what I want to know. Take it out.
But what it pays for are your badges, these plates, anything else that y'all need to represent yourself as town council members for the town.
I understand that, but we don't need to buy shirts for everybody.
Then everybody needs to make a consensus to take it out.
Is that necessary or is something that we want? We
First-
have to ask that question.
First of all, I don't have a shirt. I mean, who got shirts?
It's not about,
You know what I'm saying?
there's no other way to classify that line other than calling it uniforms, because that's what it equates to in other departments.
I understand what you're saying.
may I make a
We-
suggestion?
Yeah.
Okay, we can stay here till Friday if we go through each of these
Maybe
items
Saturday.
like this. If we identify, under town council, if we identify a category where it can be, to be considered for dropping, just make a list of it so we have it, and at the end, see what that comes up with. And then go back through and say, okay, we dropped this and this and this. Or we don't drop. Is there a better or alternate way to, but if we sit there and argue
Yeah,
ad infinitum about,
yeah, John, that's a
One or
good
two
point.
shirts.
I'll tell you what I'm going to do. When I go home, I'm going to go through the April 3rd, and I'm going to try to do my own scrubbing. And I'm going to scrub in the sense I'm going to compare the previous budget and the actuals. And then I'm going to have the town justify why they need more money.
Mr.
And
Mayor,
this is
I'll
not going
do
to be
that.
nice, but that's what you were supposed to do before these meetings. That's why you had these things 2 weeks ago.
All right.
can I say something about the
Charlie,
shirts?
go ahead.
I know we're not going to nitpick here, we're going to name some things, but I want our employees to be easily identifiable so nobody makes a mistake. And that goes back a lot of years where a maintenance man in a apartment complex had no identification on him, went in where a police officer had worked midnights and was asleep, and he woke up and saw this guy there with no identifiable means, and he shot him.
But the thing is, Charlie, these uniforms are not for the town, this is for the council.
Well, we don't-
At this,
We don't have
at
shirts.
this tab.
I know.
At this tab.
But Hiram said that he had to put that as the category as uniform. The only thing this town council gets is this, an occasional hat.
Tara?
Can I make a suggestion as far as going with the line by line? And, I mean, there is going to be, I'm sure there'll be like different lines that you see that you want to know or you want us to relook at. If you want to identify those lines and then let me and Hiram go back to, I mean, this is town council's budget, which is a little bit different. But then we can go back to the department heads if you want us to reevaluate specific lines. Like I'm going to go through and highlight. So any issues that you see as we're going through, I'll just highlight them and then go back through with the department heads and see what it is that we need to do. That way, it's not so much time that we're spending in the council meeting, and it can be if you see a certain issue.
Okay.
Does that sound
Let's not negotiate the numbers, let's negotiate what she can look back at and change.
right?
Agree?
Sure.
All right, John, Charlie,
Yeah.
Rich?
Yes.
So,
So I'm gonna go through, just to make sure, I'm gonna go through the sheet and give you my recommendations.
No, we're going to go
Right
through
now.
together right now. Y'all are going to identify lines that we need to reevaluate. And we'll bring that back to you Tuesday. And if there's a hard cut that y'all can agree to, that can happen right now, but this will facilitate this process a little bit easier. Because if y'all give us individual recommendations and they don't show up Tuesday, then you're going to think either we ignored them or whatever.
Yeah.
This needs to be a group decision,
Can be
not
done today.
individual review back to us.
okay, real quick, Rich, real quick, I'd just like to take a short recess, 5 minutes. Charlie's squirming over there.
No.
You have to turn it on. Ours is on.
I'd like to bring the meeting back to order. Rich? Strada?
Microphone.
Do we start with
Well, let's go to the very top.
Do we start with the total general fund?
They're starting with town council.
Town council.
Well, I think the town council, Jan Harris wants us to look at the badges and specialty merchandise.
Yeah, I have that one highlighted.
Okay. Anything else on town council?
No.
No.
Rich? Town council. Jan, anything else while Rich is looking?
that's all.
Okay.
Would you let me put those in the binder where they belong? I'll put those in the...
I have a question. Where does legal show up?
In administration.
Under administration, professional
Okay.
services. And we dropped that.
Any other questions?
On the back page.
Jan wants us to look at the badges and uniforms, the budget for $500.
I don't have any other ones.
Rich, do you have any other ones?
Jan wants to do what?
I'm gonna look at the uniforms line where it's not really uniforms, but for the cost of the badges and the nameplates and things like that. After the election, if it changed, if the council members changed, there will be a cost for the new name badges and the new nameplates. So I'm just gonna look at that and see if I can reduce that one at
It also
all.
includes these.
Right, yeah,
So, I
yeah.
don't know what
It's it's identification purposes of y'all.
Yeah, we're getting down to the real weeds, aren't we?
I don't see where we're gonna make a change though, but, okay, it's there. Just look at it, right?
Yeah, it'll take me a few minutes, I'll look at it. That's fine.
Okay, administration?
So in administration, we didn't go through this yesterday, but the second page of administration, it shows reductions that we made. This is where I had the parking study in there, and we reduced the attorney fees. And in the initial budget, we had put in $5,000 for marketing for the town, but we took that back out.
So you've already removed 90,000
Yeah.
previously.
Right.
So we need to identify categories that we want to look at to remove more.
Yeah, and this one is, I mean, if you wanted the parking study done, we took it out, and we took about 50,000 out for the parking study, but if that, because we didn't look at this one yesterday, so any discussion on this department?
Where does it say parking study?
On the second page,
But also, if you look under professional services out to the line, it would have fallen under professional services.
Okay, I see it, okay.
Because originally what we brought y'all before was 125,000 in that line, and now we're down to 90,000 in that line.
I have a question I would like for you to look at,
okay?
and it's probably going to be on every category, and that is the employee Christmas bonus.
Well, yeah, that would be a discussion for council. I can't
Yeah.
really look at that, that would be
Okay.
as council discussion.
Okay.
Is that something y'all want to have now, or do you want to go through this first? and come back?
Let's go through the items that we can give staff as homework to get ready for the next meeting. And then we identify those issues that are purely council issues, and we can determine when we want to talk about those,
Okay.
whether it's today or at the next meeting.
You know, when I was away during the budget presentations, and I saw all the wants and needs and so forth. We needed, someone suggested more police, more fire. When you go into a budget, you have to go in with a message to the department heads and staff, mainly the department heads. When you go in with the thought of, you know, whatever you want, we'll do, we're going to support you. And we initiate that by suggesting what the staff needs. And they comply with that, and they did. And as a result of that, the finance director and town administrator look at the material, did all their fact-finding analysis, and they come up and said, hey, we got a problem. If we go into this with a different mindset and say, listen, we've got to cut expenses by 3%, maybe the preparation of the budget would have been more conservative. That's a question mark. I don't know. But be as it may, we've got to do the best we can to cut unnecessary expenses.
Is there a
But
line?
it starts,
Well-
it starts in town hall.
Didn't we already know that?
Rich, we went through it, and I think everybody agrees with that. So now what we're doing now is looking at the items that we can tell Tara to go back to. So let's keep on focus of what we're looking at. and
Mr.
working-
Mayor.
Are there any lines in the operations that y'all need?
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah,
under operation, I'm looking at travel and meals, classes and conferences. That's a significant increase. Can we look at that?
training and certification, where?
Travel and
Okay.
meals.
Goes hand in hand
Classes
with
and
training,
Yeah, they're just
Yeah.
trading. So I'll do both
so we'll have to
of
look at
those.
both.
Why can't we put that at what was budgeted in fiscal year 19?
Rich, let them look at it and determine what they can do,
Well,
okay?
I thought what we were going to,
We marked it off, Rich. They're gonna go back and Tara and hire them. We're gonna look
Alright.
at that item.
okay.
Largely also last year, for this year, we didn't have anything scheduled for administration to go to outside of the clerk, just so you know. Most of my stuff that I did in the interim was coming out of the planning department.
I
Can
mean,
you also look at the last one, COG meetings?
Those are our
Those
dues and
are-
subscriptions.
Yeah, those are dues and subscriptions.
Yeah.
I can look back at them, but those are what we're memberships, what we're part of. So I'm not sure that that would be able to change very much.
Unless you don't want to pay for the certifications for staff as well and our memberships to
Yeah.
organizations.
yeah, the point is that it increased by 4,500.
And a lot of that has to do with the memberships for me, and a few of them went up for a few other organizations. But we can go back and make sure those numbers are as tight as they can
Yeah.
be.
If you look at the 17-18 actual too, for some reason it went down for the 18-19 budget. But I mean, I'll definitely go
Yeah.
back through it
Yeah.
and pull each one of the subscriptions. Yeah.
Anything else on administration?
Not here.
Brian? Jan?
I just have one. This regulatory taxes and fees.
It went down, Rich.
That went up by
No, that
800.
went up by 800.
$800, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, fire fees increased. I don't know what that means, but, you know, if you look at the track record of that, it's never exceeded 4,200, so
But Rich, if you look back, it's increased about $800 every year. It's increased every year about $800. Give or take a little bit, but
From
Yeah,
16.
yes, like I said, we're down to the weeds,
we want to be in the weeds.
and everything needs to be questioned and hopefully shaved.
So are we done with administration?
I am.
Rich, you're the only one,
Yeah.
you're done. Finance? I think finance is, cut a lot already.
Yeah, my only increase is that I have a certification, the finance officer certification through the state of North Carolina, and I have classes I have to attend to maintain my certification.
I don't see a problem with finance. Anybody else see a problem with finance?
I'm fine.
John?
I guess, just one question. The tax collection fees,
Yeah, they were under budgeted.
okay, and that's what we pay the county to manage our taxes?
Correct.
Rather than hiring a person to do that
Correct.
and all that kind of stuff, or a staff to do that?
Right.
Okay.
So
Right.
That's a problem from the previous year.
Yeah, the increase is because it was under budgeted in the previous year, yeah. Which it also is it's estimated, so it's, yeah.
Any other questions on finance?
I'm good with that.
Rich?
No.
Jan?
I'm good.
Okay. Public infrastructure? Can't talk with my brain.
I have a question on the utilities.
Okay.
At what point do we start seeing lower electric cost based on having converted to LED lighting?
Takes 30 to 90 days. See it to come through. What did he estimate? About 60% savings on lighting bill? Remember, it's a lighting bill. If saves your bill is $1,000, 52 or 53% of that is air conditioning and heat. The rest of it is electric, the lights. And we're a little higher because we have more air conditioning than most states.
I can look at the trend.
Okay, just making sure
Is that my fault?
we got that one covered.
Is that my fault?
Yeah, it's all your fault.
Anything else in public infrastructure y'all want us to look at?
No, I'm fine with it.
I mean, we've dropped the
$1.5
the maintenance, the grounds maintenance,
Yeah, and that's just bringing it in line with what the contract
and
is.
the contract services, we consolidated everything into one place. Yeah, so. And the liability insurance went up.
All right, let's go to the police
I'm
department.
good.
Rich, police department?
No, I'm going to leave that to the chief.
Is there any specific lines that you want me to go over with the police chief?
I hiring that one person.
I think that really is gonna be, that would be more of a council.
Yeah, and that's gonna be a council
Decision.
decision because, I mean,
Okay.
that should be a council discussion.
What are you referring to, Hiram?
The additional personnel, the one additional personnel.
The code official and
In the vehicle.
the vehicle.
Right, and everything that's associated with that person, but that's that's not, we've already made our case for why we think that should stay in, so that's up to y'all to figure out if you want to remove
So
it.
when we come back and we can't get to that number, then the council can make a decision
Yeah,
to
that
hire
you
or
can
not
do
to
it that
hire.
way.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, this is more of like.
In general, what
in
numbers do you
general
want to see us to
things,
tighten
yeah.
up? Any line items?
Just sort of a question. With all the new vehicles that we have, we didn't have a drop in vehicle repair and maintenance from the last budget year, 15,000, to this budget year.
Accidents happen. We want to be prepared to make sure that those vehicles are running in tip-top shape. So this is for basically, and some of the vehicles are still older. Not all of them were replaced.
We purchased 5 vehicles in the last fiscal year. The 5th of those was just issued 2 months ago. So the remaining fleet, until we were able to replace them, was a very quickly aging fleet. They were being operated sometimes 24 hours a day. Thus, the aging fleet was still there for the majority of that period. So that maintenance cost reflects that.
Okay.
Similarly, we replaced 5 out of the 11 marked cars that we have, so 6 are continuing to age, and we've already cut the one that I recommended replacing this year. And as we talked about in the budget presentation, if we don't get on a regular replacement schedule, which I understand if we're unable to do that, that's fine. But at some point, what I want to avoid is coming back to council saying, I got to have 5 more.
Okay. So you're comfortable that the maintenance proposed for FY '19 is adequate, even at the same?
Yes, sir.
But it would be good to see your life cycle projections now that you've got the vehicles in, and we start looking at and seeing, so we can
Right,
so we can be looking 5 years ahead and recognizing sort of if things go normal, we might be
Right.
having to add vehicles at this point in time.
And the town administrator and I have talked about the life expectancy out of an issued vehicle versus a fleet vehicle. And we anticipate at least several more years life expectancy out of an issued vehicle. So that is going to drive costs down. So until we have 1 full year with all the vehicles being issued to truly recognize the cost savings, it's going to be a best guess to say this is what we're going to need for repair and maintenance. Hopefully, we're under that.
Yeah, and the replacement schedule will be easier to figure out once they've had them out for a year as well,
Yeah.
so we can see the wear and tear.
Correct.
But we're estimating, instead of 4 to 5 years, 7 to 8 years minimum out of the new vehicles.
Per vehicle that is
Yeah, but the older vehicles would
assigned out. Yeah.
still wouldn't meet that 8-year mark because they've been run constantly and just now recently have downgraded to a 12-hour shift as opposed to a 24-hour shift.
Correct. Some of the vehicles that were issued to employees already were sitting with 60 or 70,000 miles when we said, here, this is yours.
Okay.
Chief, when do you expect a car to be at its limit? 100,000 miles?
It really depends because there's different factors with idle time, the way that they're driven at times. So the 100,000 mile mark is really, we really start to take a look at it at that point. What I look at is how much am I spending on a particular vehicle? For example, P4, which I recommended replacement this year. We've dropped, we've dropped so much money in that vehicle replacing or repairing it. And it's still, as I mentioned, that's what our part-time employees drive. And it sounds like a helicopter when you start it up. It's safe to drive, but it's not by far. It needs replaced. But we can stretch another year out of it. It's just, it's going to be in the shop. There's no doubt about it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else before I step away?
The only thing where I think we do savings is the truck and the code official and animal control. But I like to take that off at the very last minute if we can't find the money elsewhere. So I just want you to know that.
Sure.
Chief, if you went through this budget, could you tweak it to reduce cost? If the council said cut 3%, cut 2%, what would the impact be? Question mark. Could you do that?
Prior to what was presented in March? Or with what you're looking at currently?
No.
What we're looking at currently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could.
Yeah.
The thing is, there's, for example, the RMS upgrade, that's $80,000. That we have an RMS currently. It's working for us. But the upgrade is going to provide a much better serviceability. And that's what I'm looking for is from an operational standpoint, from a service needs standpoint, that RMS is far better than what we currently have in place. The features that it has, we have an antiquated system. It's like using a rotary phone.
That's connecting you to the county.
Correct. Correct.
This
There's
is
an
something
officer
we really-
safety, a service.
And that's one of the things we talked about last year when you were talking about getting the
When
new
we talked
vehicles.
about GPS.
But this is part of managing, controlling the new vehicles.
Correct.
If you will, the fact that we have our police officers taking these home, the fact that we would be in this RMS system enables you to do due diligence and supervision over your entire staff by knowing where the vehicles are, what the records are, and things like that, should a problem start to
Absolutely.
crop up.
Absolutely.
As well as for doing police
Well, I
missions.
think we all consider that essential.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, I do not want that one to be messed with.
Well, I don't see anything on this budget we need to look at. He's cut it considerably, $110,000. No, more than that.
More than
Yeah,
that.
we
almost,
cut
almost
$281,000.
$281,000.
Almost 300.
And it's still less than the previous year's budget,
Yeah, he's-
even with the addition of the new officer in the vehicle.
No, Chief, I think you've done a good job with your
Yeah.
budget. It's gone down from last year, so
I don't see anything that he's looking into.
John?
I'm comfortable here.
Rich?
No, I can't.
Dan?
You good?
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Fire,
Calm down. Fire.
sorry. I didn't know if you had your pages in order today.
Okay. Chief, you want to come up? Paul? Any questions to the chief?
Yeah, in uniforms, you dropped $10,000 in turnout gear and things like that that you'd wanted to replace. Is that problematic, or is that,
Potentially, but I try to make it work. The turnout gear specifically, it's good for 10 years and then it gets replaced. We try to keep everybody on a cycle. The guy that's overseeing it right now, does it become problematic? I hope not, but
Also, remember what we're trying to do with the fire department is stay within the fire fees. And presently, that budget, proposed budget is over those fire fees. So, the chief is elected to look at those cuts where he thinks he could do and stretch things out a little bit longer, but it's not necessarily guaranteed either.
yep. Okay. So right now, you're roughly over, about 34,000 over the predicted impact?
Yes.
Input. Okay. But that really does not affect
The general
our
fund,
discussion of the ad valorem taxes.
it does insofar that if you approve something more than the fire fees.
Okay,
That's why he's done his level best to try to cut what he feels that he can get rid of to get to the point where he's at. And we're all fully aware that we still need to make a few changes here and there.
As you said yesterday, it's closed.
It's
right?
30,000. I said 10 yesterday, but it's
Yeah,
30,000.
It's 30, okay.
Which still, in the grand scheme of things, is still really close.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think we leave it up to the chief to,
Chief, just look
Figure
at,
out what he
see
can
if you
do.
can get, eliminate that $34,000 if you can. Okay? But you know your fire department better than we do. So for us to micromanage what you need and not need, it's like the chief of police. We can't do that from here. So just see what you can do. All right, Paul?
yes, sir.
All right. Any other questions for the chief?
no.
Okay. Let's go to inspections and planning. Thank you, chief.
And since we didn't spend a lot of time on this yesterday, as you'll recall, the difference between March and this budget was a little bit of drop in the training, a little bit of drop in the travel, and then the vehicle
Right.
that had been requested has been removed already.
You removed that, correct? Yes,
Right.
$32,000.
And with the planner coming in, once we look at them, based on what certifications and the continuing education they have to keep up, we still kept that training line. Instead of dropping it down to about 7, we kept it at 9. Just because that's an unknown quantity at this point.
And I've got a inspector who's got 3 certifications. We've just got him through 1, and he's gonna have to attain another one next year. And so that's about, that's a couple grand, to send him out of town and take his class, take his exam.
How long are they gone for?
How long, what, Mark?
Are they gone for 2 days, 3 days?
Most time it's 2 weekends. So it's like a 3-day event, and then they have to go and test up in Wilmington or Fayetteville or somewhere in Raleigh where we can get them in to get them take their exam.
But they'll travel 3 times for
They
that,
will.
give or take.
And then also too, we have mandatory continuing education that we've always tried. Oak Island hosts free classes, and we've always been able to take advantage of it. And, but that's not necessarily always gonna be the case. And so we tried to hold the travel down and keep it close by and to be able to take advantage of those free classes. But it could be where we'd have to go out, and we all can't be going at the same time. So one may have to go to Kinston, one may have to go to Raleigh, but we have mandatory hours. We have to keep up our certifications, renew them in June.
Or the town gets in trouble in itself.
Okay, again, go back to you and see if you can cut what you can cut. All right, I'm not gonna look at a line items and pretend I know if you need it or not need it. I don't know that.
You know,
And
like I said,
one area always to look at is sort of the department supplies, you know, across the board, each one of the departments that the, you know, nickel and diming, but
Yeah.
that's one area that we don't have any visibility on.
Yeah, and as you can see there, ours is pretty, pretty low. You know, we do a lot of, we do a lot of, we have a lot of paperwork. I mean, I've had to borrow pens at the bank before, you know, and, but they don't give away pens anymore at the bank. So, but, we'll try to.
Dennis next door does.
Go back and look at it. So, we'll try to go back and look at it. But, like I said, the vehicle, if we have to take the vehicle out, then, you know, we've gonna have to keep our maintenance, line item where it is because of a failing transmission in that vehicle. And, so, but we'll definitely take a look at it again.
The GIS license support, is that number,
That's a fixed number that they give us every year.
okay.
That's, in order for us to maintain the GIS system in the planning department, they have to pay it. And it's like $2,000.
I have no other questions. Let's go back and see what you can do, all
Okay.
right? Everybody chips in a little bit.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Streets? Dustin.
When you replace no parking signs and things like that, who pays for the signs?
PAL bill.
The PAL bill?
Information signs comes out of PAL bill. We can use that. But any name signs, anything like that, has to come out of the streets department.
Name signs be like the street names.
Street names, yes. And you'll see that it's up a little bit, and I do have to order a lot of more street signs. I've still got to replace the ones in Sandpiper, some in Windfall, and I still got to replace some in Sea-Trail. That's got to be changed over to the new codes that the Federal Transportation Board has asked us to do.
You mean like some of the
Reflective.
sea trails have very low
Yep, they're
yield
wood
signs,
ones.
you need to bring them
Yep.
up to state standards?
Yes, so the
Okay.
wooden signs have to go. They've got to be reflective, they've got to be green, and they got to be a certain leather height.
Dustin, in 3 years, we've doubled our department supplies. Why is that?
The signs,
That's all signs?
yeah, I've been ordering a lot of signs. Before, until they switched it around and made us do this. All towns are having to do this, just not us. The municipalities, everybody.
Digressing just a little bit, what does one of the street signs generally cost?
Just depends how long or how many letters. Like Shoreline Drive East, I think that we just ordered a bunch the other day of about $6,000 worth. That was just all speed limit signs. 2,000 for a roughly sign, maybe about $30-$40. Just depends.
Okay, that's,
It just depends.
so if we catch one of the people who's ripping off the street signs, it's not quite grand larceny yet, but,
They do get stolen, and I do have to replace them.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Dustin or the budget? Rich? Thank you, Dustin.
I still got more.
Right. You don't leave for a while. Stormwater?
We've tried to be as conservative with this department, while still keeping in mind that y'all want to accelerate the plan. So the only potential cut that I could perceive being done here would be taking infrastructure and repair and maintenance and just not accelerating the plan and knocking that back. Probably 150 would be a good number.
Yeah, we do have some failures that's got to be fixed.
You know, this town council, not this town council, but this town has kicked this storm issue down the road 30 years. I do not want to cut this.
No, I agree. We'll have to get it somewhere else.
All right.
Sanitation?
Well,
Oh,
just to
sorry.
be clear, though, the 200,000 is accelerating our stormwater plan. Is that correct? Or is it a combination of,
Based on Mr. Baker's advice before he left,
Yeah.
the $200,000 would have accommodated accelerating the plan somewhat.
somewhat, but not,
Not taking
But-
it to the
but-
5-year plan.
yeah,
That's not
Yeah.
going to happen.
yeah,
Um,
but it's still, the bulk of that 200,000 is
Year two.
this year's plan.
It's year 2, and I think 1 or 2 projects from year 3, or was it? It was finishing up a project from year 1, year 2, and a project in year 3.
Yes,
Okay.
that we had to speed up.
So we really don't want to cut stormwater.
I think there's other areas.
Not based
that
on
we-
your,
Based on our priorities,
based
as
on
a-
your priorities.
our priorities as a town, okay?
Right.
Just making sure we're straight.
Watch out, Tara. Pens are thrown.
Need the fire marshal in here. There's a ramp next to my chair.
Any other questions on stormwater?
No.
Yes. All right, sanitation, Dustin? The only thing we could do is take out the bush bandit and then go back to picking up,
Yeah, there's no way.
That'll
I
that'll
can't-
just take us back to
I know.
Yes.
not getting things done.
I only,
Yes.
actually, I just want to see his expression when I said that. Anywhere, Dustin, you cut this?
No, matter of fact, I think we decreased it because of, on the second pickup, I think we went down a little bit or the year before, never mind, not this year, last year.
There's a
Yeah,
quick
year
question.
before.
How's the Thursday pickup working out?
They just started, I think,
May.
last week.
April,
Last
rather.
week was their first
Yeah.
time.
They did manage to skip 1 week of recycling on the island.
I
with
saw that, yeah.
You know, because last Wednesday, the 3rd, would have been a recycling day, and on the 4th was no recycling, so, I mean, it's,
Yeah, 'cause
I think the island survived, but they,
Yeah.
and they alternated the recycling schedules where it would have been picked up last week is now this week.
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
But it's not summer yet.
yeah.
I know. Any other questions on sanitation? Environmental protection?
The
Would-
pond management, is that the ponds that are over in,
Use your mic, please,
Seaside-
Jan.
I'm sorry,
Yes.
the pond management,
It's over
On
here in Seaside Station, Shoreline Woods,
Right.
back here, the 9 ponds we have here and the pond that we have at Station 2.
right. And what does the management consist of?
They come out once a month and treat them if it needs to be treated. If there's any moss, any algae, or anything like that's growing in it, they take care of it. That's what they do. They just treat it to keep the vegetation out.
And we do that because we own those.
We own them ponds. Yes.
That happened many years ago
Yes,
when title was transferred for the town, to the town.
2001, when it was done.
Thank you.
Yes.
We're not planning on taking over anymore, are we?
No.
No.
That's
Not unless the council approves.
that's y'all's call.
Staff
As long
most
as I'm
likely will
on
not
board.
recommend it.
No, no.
The 36, the infrastructure maintenance and repair, what kind of stuff is that covering on environmental protection? You've got bulkheads,
Bulkheads, the riprap in the park, anything that happens with that, erosion, like I said, the bulkheads, anything, any failures that would cover it.
Okay, so we have bulkheads in the park.
You got bulkheads, you got riprap, you got the floating dock down there that's being
Yeah.
repaired. Matter of fact, they're repairing that right now.
What
Does-
about the
does the
end of the
town own-
streets?
And at the end of the streets, that's where the bulkheads are at, like into your sailfish, even the easements that are on the island that we have where the pipes that goes out where bulkheads are at also they're our responsibility too to keep up.
So
So
the
there's,
end of the canals, that bulkhead's our responsibility?
yes, at the end of the fish streets
Yeah,
is ours. In between the fish streets, they're ours.
yeah,
We're next to Canal Drive.
okay.
There's ours, and also if you go down Canal Drive, where the pipes that goes out into the bay area that drains for the stormwater, their bulkheads are ours. There's 10-foot easements for them. Also on the west end, where the pipes goes out, we have easements for them. So there's bulkheads there for them to also.
Okay. Do we have any of the bulkhead at the end of 17th Street?
Yes, 17th, 16th. All them right there are in the right of way, so they belong to the town.
The ones that are in the right of way?
Yes.
too? Okay. Okay.
And one of those has to be looked at right now, right?
Yeah, the one of those that had to be looked at we'll probably be able to make it through this year or through the summer, but it don't have to be repaired.
Is
at
that the
end
one
of
at 17th?
16th.
Okay, you were out there looking at 17th the other day, too.
No, I was looking
16th.
16th.
I got it,
16th
yeah,
is the one.
yeah.
Yes.
All right, good, thank you.
Any other questions on environmental protection?
Well, the only real soft number in there is that 100,000 that we put into the natural disaster fund.
Mhm.
Yeah,
That's still in there?
Yeah.
yeah. We didn't say take it out, we just discussed what it was.
What if we took it out, Hiram, and then we needed it, we'd take it out of the fund?
We could do that, but as we explained, it's just a bad practice. But, I mean, if that's what y'all want to do, that's your decision. We've made our recommendation on
Yeah.
that.
But one of the things I wasn't particularly clear of yesterday, by having this line item in there, is there a certain dollar amount that sort of makes FEMA happier, if you will, more amenable to helping us out?
No, what I was talking about with FEMA is that we're gonna RFP, send out a proposal
Yeah,
at
to-
the beginning of the fiscal year.
to have it on
In case
standby.
a disaster happens,
yeah.
so that we're covered for that. That's for FEMA.
Okay,
The
And that's
request
just
for
an
proposal.
advertising cost.
Right.
yeah,
This is the upfront, there's been a disaster, the day after, we know there's money in the budget that we can start work on that doesn't require y'all to meet to do a budget amendment
It's
and
good-
authorize.
It's good practice,
Yeah.
but not necessary.
when we had Florence, it looks like we would have only had, what, 5,100
Yeah, but,
as a startup cost?
and technically that was enough for me to authorize the work to go forward.
And that was it? Okay, to authorize the work.
So can we drop that 100,000 to 50,000?
Yeah, you can drop it to whatever you want to. It's not necessary. It was just in there for good practice. So if a storm came through, you would have to do a budget amendment. Even though we get reimbursed for the cost, you would have to do a budget amendment.
Right.
And then the cost would cross fiscal years most likely, but it would be like a receivable.
But isn't that the purpose of the reserves? See, here we go again.
The-
See, we're funding,
That's why I'm saying it's
like
good
we're double
practice.
funding.
No,
Right, but
it's
this
not
is,
double
that's
funding.
not what's going on, but this is a best practice. You should put money in there that you know you might have to spend to show that you're properly managing your money. To always rely on budget amendments and pulling from the fund balance is a gig in the audit. It's bad practice. It's
Hiram?
bad management.
Hiram, we, over the last couple of years, we've had 5,000, 5,000, then we have 100,000. Can we drop that to 50,000? Would you be comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that gives you 50,000 to get things started immedately.
Right.
And if you do an RFP for a company, that gives you money to start feeding into them right away.
Is everybody, did we drop it to
Yeah,
50,000?
drop it.
Yep.
All right, we all agree. All right, Dustin, you keep your job.
Huh?
Keep your job. Are we okay with environmental protection?
Yes.
Okay, now we're at PAL bill funding.
fund won't really affect the tax rate.
Yeah, this has a different revenue, so this has the Powell bill funds, and this budget matches
Right.
the revenue that we're gonna get this year.
Yeah, this is as tight as we're gonna get it unless you just wanna cut paving.
Yes. That's
You
the
see
only-
paving this year, this is what you budgeted for paving.
Yes.
Okay. Any questions?
Nope.
Next.
No.
Sunset is sunset. We didn't discuss this yesterday, but it's pays for itself.
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
their money that they draw in from the vendor fees in the event.
Does
Any-
not affect general fund at all.
Does anybody have any questions on it?
Nope.
Okay. Accommodation tax funds. Can we ask the state to give us more money? More of our own money?
You just have to get more people here to get more money. That's all that is.
Bring the tourist in.
Yep.
And we still don't
This
know
is-
how Sea Trail's alteration of their operations is gonna affect this for the coming year.
Didn't
Because they closed some kind of,
Yeah, but some
Center, right?
Yeah, but didn't some company out of North Myrtle Beach take it over?
Yeah, but I'm not entirely sure they took over the entire operation. I know they took over aspects of it, but I don't know if they took over every rental that they had before that we were getting money off
Can we
of.
find that out, Harm? Can someone contact them or?
Well, they took over,
We can
they
try.
took over the
call
VAC
Dana.
center.
Right, but I don't know if anyone's taken over like their full rental program, their resort aspect of it.
I heard they did, but can we find out?
We can try to call Dana if she'll respond back to us.
Okay.
We've had a hard time getting them to talk to us at all.
Just tell me we're trying to figure out a budget. Could you help us out? Doesn't work that way with her.
No.
Okay. Hiram, do you see anywhere here, or Sarah, do you see anywhere here we can cut?
Chief, the UTV, this is a replacement for the one that's just rusting out? Or did we replace that one already? Can you step up to the?
No, that's just starting, and keeping them on a replacement plan, the UTVs, based off of what Deputy Chief Childers has been telling me and showing me, because there's so many hours on the beach, he's getting 2, maybe 3 years out of a UTV, so we just gotta stay on a replacement
Steve, I'd
schedule.
also recommend the guys on the beach not to go through the water, and sometimes they do. I'm sure that salt water's not helping that equipment at all.
Yeah,
I know they clean them very well afterwards, so just a
I think
thought.
they have a pretty robust maintenance. When they come back each night, they're cleaning them and stuff. I think it's just a harsh environment
Sure.
for them.
Could you go another year without that, or?
I don't know. It depends on the year and if we,
When you get a new UTV, what do you do with the old one?
we're trying to keep them in a backup mode because they're at some point in this summer, the one that was bought last year, the newer, less expensive models that are still coming that we don't even have yet. The one that's 2 years old. At some point, something's going to get broke down, and we're going to have to take a trailer out there and bring it off the beach. So it's a reserve function or a machine that's not operating as many hours as what those back.
So it's your
What,
backup.
what about when you get a new one and you got the old one there? Don't put the new one into service until the old one dies. And the new one becomes the backup and minimizes the wear, to kind of stretch it out. So we make sure that we fully wear out the old ones.
Then you don't have a backup, right?
Well, there-
Is there pros and cons?
Absolutely. We can try doing it multiple ways, but the end result is they're only gonna last so long on the beach.
Yeah, well,
Because of
the,
the conditions.
I think one of the points is that we have directed that we want you and the department and all the departments to have good, solid life cycle programs for the vehicles and equipment, so that it's replaced on a regular basis rather than clumps of them coming together at once. And so that's one of the reasons we really don't want to pull that UTV off of the purchase schedule.
They're,
Just ask the question.
we're also trying a different model.
You doing Polaris this year?
John Deere this year?
John Deere this year to try that to see, because the model that we're using, the last two that we currently have, the older ones, bunch of maintenance costs, high hours, and the dealer and the manufacturer's even saying, he said, you're putting so many hours on these machines, it's above and beyond what even they're saying they should put
What's the
on.
warranty on this John Deere coming in?
Those environments on the beach void a lot of any manufacturer warranty.
Oh, you're not going to the beach.
We're
I don't
getting
think-
down
I
to
don't
a
think I can do
very
that.
micro level.
That's $15,000, Rich. I just asked the
No,
question.
no, I understand that. The point is, like I said, Hiram and the department heads and Tara have to get together, bang their heads, prioritize what needs to be reduced, and wait for their report.
And
But I've already told you, that's what
That's-
we've already done.
And what we're doing is giving them a supplemental guidance on what else we think they can reduce further, or should consider reducing
Well,
further, and
Chief,
to bring
thank
that
you.
back to
Right,
us.
Yeah.
Just I got one question for you. The one thing that, stands out, can we go one more year with this bathroom?
Didn't we say we were going to?
No,
No.
we kept the bathroom trailer in here.
Yeah, we
It
could,
just, I discovered yesterday is it wasn't going to be put into after the season starts.
Yeah, it can be ordered. We won't be able to do it until till the new budget kicks in before we could order it.
Yeah, it'd be in service next spring,
It'd be
we're
next
buying
spring.
it now for next year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but it's still this coming fiscal year.
Yes.
Yeah.
I could try, we can try. That's all I could do.
You're not just stretching it one more season, you're stretching it 2 seasons at that
Stretching it
point.
yeah, 1.5, yeah,
Yeah.
2 seasons.
I don't think that's a good idea.
Can I ask a silly question? Do we need 2 of them?
They used a lot.
They're both
Yeah,
used a lot.
That one at the gazebo, I've already had to replace the doors on that thing. Put new doors, all 3 doors, air conditioners. We go through them and underspray them, coat them, everything that I can do to them to help with the rust out there, and it still rusts. We paint the insides. I do a lot of maintenance to them during the off season. To try to
How
keep
long
them
we've
up.
had these?
Since 2011,
Was 11?
yeah, I think 2011.
Okay, I agree with you. Just if we could get rid of it, but like Hiram's right, states it right. It's not 1 year, it's going to be
It'll
2
be
more
2 years.
years. And I
Yeah,
just
so keep it in there.
keep it in there.
Yep.
Any other questions on accommodation tax?
Nope.
Richard?
Nope.
Jan? Beat erosion. Well, you're here a long time.
This also doesn't affect general fund.
No.
Dustin, thank you very much. Well, I guess the council's going to wait until Tara gets back to us on what she can do or not do. And then that time, town council has to make a decision, either raise the taxes or keep the taxes as they are.
Well, yes, but if y'all want to go ahead and discuss some of those items that the council needs to discuss.
As far as the items we just discussed again,
Well, as the bonus, I mean,
I really want Tara to come back with us without even touching that right now.
okay, so Tuesday at our regular meeting, and then we're having a budget workshop where we're giving you the final information you need. Y'all need to make a decision
Right.
Tuesday.
Yeah, it's nice to see the list, the consolidated list, Hiram. It
So
would
that
be
we can
nice.
prepare the final draft budget to bring
Yeah.
to y'all for the public hearing. So for us
Yeah.
to have something for you for May to set the public hearing, because once we set the public hearing, that's the draft that you will be voting on.
That's right,
You'll have to make your decision Tuesday now.
right.
That was our buffer meeting for you to make
Yeah,
decisions.
no, that's fine.
That's fine.
So you don't want to discuss these things right now about
That's fine.
bonuses?
I think you need to come back to us on Tuesday and we'll finalize it.
Okay, because we're maybe going to have 200,000, not even 200,000 in savings from what you've told us to look at.
Say that again?
I mean, we're going to have maybe $100,000 in savings. We cut 50, and then you want us to nickel and dime a few line items. We're not even going to have.
Well, it is what it is. That's when we have to, as a council, have to make a decision.
Okay,
on
I'm just
tax-
pointing out that we've
Or raise the tax.
generously we could maybe say 100,000 has been cut,
Well,
and that's generous.
yeah, don't forget, there's also the add-ons that are still remaining in the budget.
But they're all presented here.
I understand that, I
Okay.
understand
But,
that.
you know, we talked to the chief about not hiring that officer. That's $100,000 right there. So that's, you know.
Give or
it's
take. I know, but I'm just making the point that kicking the can down the road another meeting, we need to have a solidified thing so we can actually by law get the draft to you in May.
Yeah, no, I think that's all doable. Should be.
Okay.
Well, what do you mean by doable?
Time-wise, this is April.
Yeah.
So you're asking us right now to discuss what we just discussed about cutting, correct?
Well, I'm asking you to make sure that you understand that come Tuesday, these are the decisions you're going to have to make.
So Tuesday, we will have to discuss, one, the bonus. So we need a complete, what a total figure for the bonus would be. I didn't see, was it
It's
in there
already-
somewhere?
It's in there. Each department, I
Yeah.
have it
But
listed separate.
we'll make a
And-
separate sheet to say what everything is in total.
Yeah.
So if that's what we have to do, but what you need to make a decision on that, the additional personnel, yes or no,
Yeah.
tax rate.
We're not gonna make that today, because I want to
And,
see what
and you're
the
not going to
final
have,
budget's gonna be.
but the problem is, we're not going to have this to you till Monday at best.
Yeah, no, that's,
And you have to make a decision on it on Tuesday.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want everybody on the same
I have
page.
no problem
Okay.
with that, Hiram.
Okay.
Why can't you get it to us Friday?
Have to meet with the.
I mean,
Go ahead.
personally, what I'm hoping to see is a reduction of $270,000. That's what I'm hoping for. That's what I'm praying for, to St. Joseph.
Well,
That's
well,
all.
let's go back again. You have not raised almost anything in this budget for them to reduce that comes even close to that. We're talking about, if we do 50,000 stormwater, if the chief can knock 34,000 off the fire chief to nickel and dime his account to bring it right in there, that's $84,000 there. Then we have another $15,000, $20,000 that we've identified of places to even be looking at.
Well, maybe we should
Other
be
than
hiring
that, other than
additional
that
people.
person.
Can
Yes,
you
ma'am.
show us with and without the bonus and the one extra employee and the couple of iffy things that the council has to decide? Can you give us?
Yeah, we can break it out.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
It'll just be extra columns, and you'll need a bigger magnifying glass.
I need that anyway.
But Tara, when you do it, also look at that with a 15 and 16 cent rate.
Okay, that's all presented here right now. You'd have to break, but what we can do is we can break out and say, this is what the bonuses would be for the number of employees we have total. That,
Well, I can add the line underneath each of those
Right.
as to what the difference
Right.
needs to be. Is that what you're asking?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Okay? So there, then the council will know if we go to 16 cents, we don't need to cut this.
Right.
Okay.
all right, we'll do our best to have this to you by Monday, but
Yeah. What's our number of staff that would be eligible for a bonus?
47,
47.
give or take. Is that counting the vacant positions? Okay.
Okay.
Well, not new positions.
Bonuses would be for all full-time employees.
Yeah, so that's
So
at
it'd be full-time
47,
full-time
so if it
employees as
changes,
of-
we did it
yeah.
at 500. Right now,
Yeah.
the total's 23.5. So,
Does that include the FICA, et cetera?
Can't hear you, Jan.
Sorry. Does that include the
That-
no,
FICA?
but that would only be, so I can tell you what that number would be right now. 'Cause it's only, it doesn't go to retirement and all that stuff, it's just the one. So that would add $1,700. So it would be like 25, just a little under 25.
Sorry.
It is listed on each salary line,
That's all.
in the notes next to it. I have both the 3% and the bonus separated off to the side, so you can see
Yeah.
what the amounts are for each department too.
Thumbs up?
That's not me.
No, it's me.
That ain't me.
So am I recessing this, Lisa, or,
You can close this one because the other one's part of our next regular meeting.
okay. Any other questions, any other discussion? At this time, I'd like to adjourn the meeting.